thalamus is one of the diencephalic nuclei, which we made mention about 5 nuclei there. We said we have thalamus, hypothalamus, subthalamus, epithalamus, and metathalamus. So if we now take a superior view of the 2 thalami, that means if I now open the cranium up and I cut across the cerebral hemispheres and I remove the cerebral hemispheres of either side and I expose the 2 thalami and their accompanying nuclei, that is what I'm going to see. So as we said before, each of the 2 thalami is an egg-shaped structure. It has an anterior end, which is round and narrower than its posterior end, which is also round but broader. Did you hear the differences? The anterior end is round but narrower than the posterior end, which is also round but broader. Are you clear? So now we have seen that the posterior end or pole of the thalamus is broader. And so that posterior end is also called pulvina. If you look at an egg of a hen, you'll see that it has a pointed end, which is narrow. The back is broader. That is exactly the way the thalamus is. So the anterior end, which is narrower, is called anterior tubercle of the thalamus. So the anterior end is called anterior tubercle. The posterior end is called pulvina. There are structures associated with the posterior end of each of the thalamus. On the posteromedial end of each of the thalamus, postero-infromedial, hear the word, postero-infromedial part of each of the thalamus, there is a body known as medial geniculate body. On the postero-inferior lateral of each of the thalamus, you have another body known as lateral geniculate body. So we have 2 bodies. These 2 bodies are called metathalamus. So you have 2 bodies on one side, you have 2 bodies on the other side. Are you clear? Good. So now we have seen the medial geniculate body and the lateral geniculate body. At the posterior end, at the pulvina of each of these 2 thalami, there is also group of nuclei. This group of nuclei on either side is what we call habenular nucleus. So the habenular nucleus lies at the back of each of the thalamus. And the 2 habenular nuclei, they are interconnected. And that is what we call habenular commissure. If you can remember, the 2 cerebral hemispheres are linked together by corpus callosum, which is part of the commissural fibers. So here it is commissural fibers joining one habenular nucleus of one side with habenular nucleus of the other side. So you have habenular commissure joining the 2 habenular nuclei, each on either side of the posterior end of the thalamus. Are you clear? And in between the 2 habenular nuclei, you have one gland, what we call pineal gland. And this pineal gland is also connected with each of these habenular nuclei together. Pineal gland, actually, scientists mistook it to be the seat of soul, where the soul lies. But unfortunately, that was not the case. When they wanted to prove that that was the site where the soul is, they now remove the pineal gland to see whether that person is going to die, if that is at all the area where the soul is. But they remove the pineal gland, the person was alive, or the animal was alive. So that means it's not true. God has said it in the Holy Quran. قُلُ الرُّوحُ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلُ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّكَ. That is it. So it's like nobody can tell you exactly where the soul is situated, but that was the previous notion, that the soul is located in the pineal gland. But we see the importance or significance of the pineal gland when we... So the pineal gland, the habenular commissure, the habenular nuclei, all together they are called epithalamus. So the epithalamus consists of the two habenular nuclei, the habenular commissure, as well as the pineal gland. While the metathalamus include the lateral and the medial geniculate body. I hope you are clear about this. So we have now seen this nuclei. So if we now take thalamus, one of it, and we discuss it briefly now. Each of the thalamus has surfaces, and it has poles, and it has group of nuclei, because we already said that the thalamus is a group of nuclei inside it. So it has a superior surface, inferior surface. If this is the thalamus, it has a superior surface, it has inferior surface. If this is the lateral side, it has lateral surface. If it is the midline, it has a medial surface. So it has 4 surfaces: superior, inferior, lateral, and medial. Are you clear? It has 2 poles or 2 ends. Anterior end, known as anterior tubercle, posterior end or pole, known as pulvina. If I now cut a cross section of each of the thalamus into 2 transverse section like that, and I remove the upper part, I'm going to see something like this. So the thalamus, if I now make a transverse section of it, we are going to see that each of the 2 thalami is being divided into 3 parts by a figure Y-shaped structure known as intralaminar septum. You get it? So this intralaminar septum divides, you can also call it internal lamina, internal medullary lamina, internal medullary lamina, or intralaminar septum, anyone. So, but in most of the textbooks, they call it internal medullary lamina. That means there is another one outside, known as external medullary lamina. Are you clear? So this is a septum dividing the inside of each of the thalamus into 3 parts in form of figure Y. You get it? So it is called intralaminar septum or internal medullary lamina. So this internal medullary septum divides the thalamus into 3 portions. Anterior part, if this is the midline here, we have the medial part, and then we have the lateral part. So it means that in each of these areas, you have group of nuclei. The group of nuclei that are lying in this anterior compartment, they are called anterior thalamic nuclei, or it's rather called anterior thalamic nucleus, to be precise. And this one here, all of this group of nuclei are considered as being one nucleus. So it is called mediodorsal nucleus, or you can also call it dorsomedial, whichever way you like. So you can call it mediodorsal nucleus or dorsomedial nucleus. Or you can also call it a medial nucleus, anyone, no wahala. You also have lateral group of nuclei. You get it? So this lateral group of nuclei, because of their own specification of function, that is why these nuclei are going to be discussed separately. These ones, the mediodorsal group of nucleus, they have same function, so they are not going to be discussed separately. So the whole group of nuclei here, they are being considered as one nucleus because they perform the same function. Are you clear? But this one, they perform different functions, so we are going to discuss them separately. So now, if you take this one to be the anterior aspect of the thalamus, this is the posterior aspect of the thalamus. You get it? So if you now take this lateral aspect of the thalamus, you divide it into ventral portion and dorsal portion. Well, that means anterior portion and posterior portion. You have the smaller posterior portion here. The group of nuclei here perform same function. So this group of nuclei in the posterior aspect, they are called pulvinar group of nuclei. Are you clear? So they are called pulvinar group of nuclei. And so those one in the anterior aspect here, they are further subdivided. If you now divide this anterior aspect or ventral aspect of this lateral group, you divide it into two parts. Anterior part and posterior part again. Anterior and posterior part of the ventral division of the lateral aspect. Are you clear? So here in the posterior aspect of the ventral group, if you divide it into two parts, lateral part and medial part. On the lateral part, you have one group of nucleus known as posteroventrolateral nucleus. And then on the medial side here, you have posteroventromedial nucleus. That is why I divided this into two parts, this ventral part into two parts, anterior and posterior. In the posterior part, you also further subdivided into lateral and medial. So on the lateral part, you have posterior ventrolateral nucleus, and then you have posterior ventromedial nucleus. And then in the anterior portion of this ventral division of the lateral nuclei, you have one that is the most anterior in the ventral aspect. And so we call it ventroanterior nucleus. Are you clear? So we call it what? Ventroanterior nucleus. And then there is one that is a little bit more lateral on the ventral side. So we call it ventrolateral nucleus. Are you clear? So now we have seen how many nuclei? We have seen anterior thalamic nucleus, mediodorsal thalamic nucleus. We have pulvinar making 4, and then we have making 3, sorry. And then we have 4 here. Ventroanterior, ventrolateral, ventroposterolateral, and posteroventrolateral, and then posteroventromedial. You get it, making 4. So in total here, we have 7 group of nuclei. And within this internal medullary lamina, we also have some group of nuclei within the septum or within the lamina itself. There is one most outstanding or most prominent among this group of nuclei within the lamina itself, and this is what we call centromedian nucleus. We call it what? Centromedian nucleus. And this intralamina or internal medullary lamina is made up of white matter. It is axons of these cell bodies forming this nuclei that conglomerate here to form this Y-shaped structure. Also, in between the fibers, you have some neurons in between. The most prominent one is at the middle, between the two arms and the stem. You have this at the center, what we call centromedian nucleus. Each of these nuclei has its own function. So next lecture, we are going to discuss the function of each of these group of nuclei with regard to the thalamus.